Collin. Thanks for taking some time to chat with me today. Hello, everybody. I'm Ginger Bandeen. I'm the founder and CEO at Mission Driven Data.
And I'm Collin Stackhouse. I'm the Director of Operations at Mission Driven Data, and we are here for a fireside chat, literally.
And we decided to do this fireside chat, which is something we've done a couple of times throughout history of Mission Driven Data. We decided it would be a nice format to give you a little bit of an introduction to a new feature that we are adding to Janet this year. Called Whole Person Outcomes. So we're so excited about this new feature, and Collin and I were just going to chat a little bit about it and share with you all a little bit about why we're so excited. So thanks for watching.
Yeah.
We'll get started.
Yeah, it's the real deal. I mean, this is potentially like industry disrupting and game changing. And so what better way than a very casual interview format with the CEO and the maker of this new feature to describe it fully to you folks.
And we will also be having some other events to talk about the details and more information and research, but we just wanted to have this opportunity to tell you why we're so excited.
Yeah. So whole person outcomes is what we're here to talk about today. Ginger, first question. When did you first start thinking of offering an outcome measure as part of Janet, our software?
You know, Janet is designed to help agencies get better value out of their data, right? So Janet helps you get information out of your electronic health record. Over time, we've expanded that to include data out of your payroll system and your HR system and time clocking and financials and housing and all these other systems. But I always felt like the piece that we couldn't quite get was direct information from the individuals and communities that are served by the agencies we work with. And so I've been thinking for a while that it would be really great if there was some way within this huge amount of data that we now have available and available to the agencies we work with, for there to be a piece of data that was directly from the individuals who are being served, the individuals who are coming in for help, like a better way to really understand how they're doing and also how things are going as they're going through the care pathway that they're receiving at an agency. So yeah, I think outcome measures are something we always talk about a lot. Probably back to my first job in the mental health world, we've always been like trying to figure out outcome measures, but it's really been on my mind for a long time. I also think a lot of the outcome measures that we are measuring are driven by external requirements or grants we receive and government, you know, rules, regulations, which has a place, but I think that a lot of those measures are someone else's agenda. And so what I'm excited about with whole person outcomes is we decided to use an outcome measure that is much more based on how is a person doing and how is their well-being, not are we meeting the requirements for a grant. So that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and specifically, it's something called the WHO-5.
The WHO-5 Wellbeing Index.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is 5 questions. It's very strengths oriented. It's very much like, you know, over the last 2 weeks, how often have you felt cheerful and good? You know, how often are you sleeping well? You know, questions that really, I think, are more about a whole person and not just about someone's symptoms or someone's circumstances, but like, how are they doing? And I think there's all kinds of research supporting that as a measure, it's good at finding differences like treatment efficacy, but also unintended negative consequences of treatment, which is something we don't talk about a lot, but I think is important for us to keep in mind, especially as, you know, research is evolving all the time in our world. And, you know, sometimes we find out that maybe a model that had been used for a long time turns out was actually maybe doing more harm than good, which is hard for us to acknowledge, but I think we need to be like open to information about how to improve.
Yeah, or it's been tracking something that neither the patient nor the agency actually cared about or wanted to track themselves, but maybe something for reporting requirements that just kind of disappeared into the ether, and it was a big push to gather those to gather that information from the client for them to what end, you know?
Right.
So the WHO-5 is sort of the first word I want to say is like the meat of it, but the WHO-5 is like the part of the offering of whole person outcomes, right? What opportunities do you see for the WHO-5 since it's generally used internationally?
Yeah, so just to clarify, I first found out about the WHO 5 Wellbeing Index in a conference that I attended that was global mental health researchers. So researchers from all over the world, from lots of different types of countries where they have a variety of access to resources. And they're really using that as a measure of well-being to identify what interventions they're using, which could be a huge range, not just like professional counseling, but also like peer support or, mentorship or coaching or solution focused stuff.
Medication, maybe.
Medication. So like this whole range, and it's very commonly used. It's like been translated like 30 different languages. It's used all over the place. It's not used very commonly in the United States. And as far as I know, not very much in the community mental health system. So I think what I'm excited about is, having worked as a case manager myself, I think a lot of the benefit of community services comes from that connection to another person and being in the community where a person lives and being a part of the same world and building that rapport and helping people just feel better in whatever way that is, whether as a case manager, that means people sleep better at night because they have the heat turned on, or people, are having an easier time because, they got their car fixed or they got their bike fixed. So I think what I like about a measure like this is it's much more focused on like, on meeting people where they're at and not sort of like setting goals for people that aren't maybe what they want in their life. And so I think, anyway, I think a lot of the metrics we are measuring community mental health with are measuring things we're not that good at, whereas we're really good at this thing. And so I think the potential to show that is amazing.
What do you mean when you say we're really good at this thing? Like these 5 questions are really good at sort of getting people engaged, or
I mean, there's that part too, but what I mean is, I think improving people's well-being might be what we might find out that community mental health is uniquely good at that, or particularly like non-traditional kinds of services. We always have to meet billing requirements as far as documentation goes, but that all we've wrapped a lot of things around like medical necessity. And so a lot of the outcome measures are like from a medical model. And I think what's great about the WHO 5 is it's very much more about like a person's subjective experience of life and how are they feeling, which may, for example, with medical diagnosis, this is really common. In fact, it was originally used a lot more for people with health issues because there's actually evidence that if you score better on this well-being index, you're more likely to be taking care of your diabetes, which totally makes sense. We understand that connection, but this idea that like your sense of well-being affects your overall health. I just think it's a much more strength-oriented way of looking at things. And it opens up the possibility that lots of things could impact that. So, yes, medication could help, but so could, getting involved in a clubhouse model. Like there's just a whole variety of things that might make your well-being improve. And we get to know what those are so we could replicate those practices.
Yeah. And we'll share, we're talking about the WHO 5, which is a list of 5 questions. We're not going to rattle them off now, but they're findable, and we're going to talk a lot more about them in the next couple weeks. So
they're open source.
Which we need more of that in the world, I think. So we've kind of talked about how it's different than maybe some of the standard outcome scores that are used around the country. It's a subjective measure. What are some of the benefits? We have talked about it, but what are some of the benefits of a subjective measure like the WHO 5, and how do you see it being a better way to connect and serve patients?
Yeah, what I really like about it, and we haven't even touched on this yet, but part of what's included in this rollout of this feature in Janet is that we will set it up so that you can text this survey out to the individuals you serve. So on a regular cadence every week, same day, same time every week, a text message goes out to all the folks you serve, and it asks them to complete the survey of 5 questions. What I really love about that is it's directly getting input from the individual. And because these questions are framed in a very strengths-oriented way, I think it is almost like another avenue through which you can demonstrate that you're caring about someone, right? Like you're checking in on them, like how are they feeling? And the way we're recommending that you roll this out would be that like basically anyone who's active in services and perhaps got a service, like let's say in the last 2 weeks, you go ahead and send them the survey. So it's not based on like they came to an appointment or they didn't come to an appointment. They might have missed their last appointment, but you're checking in on them. You're like asking how they're doing. And I think folks, we spend a lot of time getting people to fill out the forms they need to fill out, right? Like we got to get that PHQ-9, we got to get that, GAD-7, but this is really more about, I really like the frame it as, you know, we care about the folks we serve and we want to know how they're doing, you know, and not just like, how's your depression? It's kind of like if you went to, it's like the difference between going to a doctor and your arm's broken and all they do is like, look at your arm and they never like make eye contact with you and say like, hey, how are you doing?
How did your arm get broken?
Yeah. Or like, how's it going? Like taking care of yourself with your arm broken, you know, like, so I think it's, it's a lot more of a person-centered model. In some ways you could call it person-centered outcomes, I think, but whole person, I think really captures what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And to describe it differently, or one thing that I think is worth saying that hasn't been so clearly indicated is that like these automated texts that one can now send to different clients or different the patients and the people that you serve, those responses from those text messages can automatically integrate with the rest of our Janet software and the rest of your electronic health record dashboards. And basically this information that is at the literal fingertips of your clients can within a few moments be at your fingertips when it all works out. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll have standard dashboards that come with this tool that you can use to see kind of a baseline of where are people at when they first start services. You know, how about someone who's been in services for a long time? What are the changes over time? We'll be able to do longitudinal tests. At some point, we'll probably have a data scientist come in and look at this data and help us do benchmarking. I think like tying that to diagnosis, I mean, the richness of the data we will have then to be able to really see like who is getting the most benefit from your services, who's struggling, who, you know, where are your programs shining? You know, like there's just so much flexibility there.
We're clearly pretty passionate about it.
Very excited.
So, what kind of agency or organization is the ideal user for whole person outcomes?
You know, our vision, our goal is to get as many people as possible using this. I think the more people who are using it, the more we'll have comparable data across organizations to see where people are at and to do some benchmarking. But yeah, we'd love to see this implemented across the board. I think, you know, we're going to start with 18 and over, the population of folks who are 18 and over, only because consent laws are complicated in different states. So we'll start with the adult population, but it's validated down to teenagers. So you could potentially be sending this out to teenagers.
Meaning the research shows that it has validation through the teenage.
Yeah, I can't remember what the actual age. I think it might be 10 or 11.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Nice. Last question, Ginger. Thanks for listening. Let's say everybody who watches this video is so excited and shares our passion and wants to engage with this, or if we get like a few people, what is your 5-year vision for this new kind of facet to what we offer in this new project?
Well, first of all, I want to say, if you're interested in getting involved in this, please let us know, because we're signing people up. It's a rolling enrollment. And if you're using Janet, it's not an extra charge. So first of all, please let us know if you're excited. Hopefully someday also we'll be able to offer it to agencies, even if you don't use Janet. But I think for now, we're going to start rolling it out with folks who use Janet. My vision is, so like 5 years from now, what I picture is that mission-driven data will be working with more and more agencies across the country. And we'll probably someday have like a full-time data scientist who just comes in and looks at this data, works on projects with researchers from other, you know, from like educational institutions. We'll have this rich information about, you know, ultimately we'll have information about the folks who are being served in community mental health, but that's also a reflection of folks in general. You know, I mean, a lot of the data right now that is coming out about the struggles people are having since COVID is coming out of systems where people are asking for help. So we'd see those, if we'd had whole person outcomes this whole time, imagine what we would know about how people struggled during COVID, what they needed, what helped them improve, what helped them recover. And so I think this is a way for us to start building that knowledge base, so that someday, you know, the next time SAMHSA rolls out CCBHC metrics, we want to see whole person outcomes in there. We want this to be how people are measuring success. You know, are the people we serve having an improved sense of well-being? That would be a pretty amazing outcome. And I don't think you get that out of knowing whether in the 6-month window when someone should have recovered from their PHQ-9 level depression, they now have a low enough score to be counted. Like so many of the metrics we're doing now are really based on what we can figure out how to do. So let's make more things possible. That's why I'm excited about this. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you're excited too, I hope you'll let us know. We're gonna have a workshop soon, depending on when you're watching this, it's gonna be in February of 2024.
Correct.
But if you're here in the community watching this video, I'm sure you'll be able to find resources, but you're always welcome to reach out to me. I'm Ginger at Mission Driven Data.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
thanks everybody. Take care.
Yeah.